Charles.
Yes. Who's there?
Hi, Karen McNulty.
Hey, Karen McNulty. How you doing?
Good, I made it.
Yeah. I can't see you. I just see kind of a...
You can't? So what do I need to do here?
It says that your video is playing. It looks like I'm just seeing kind of like a part of a red...
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too on mine.
Okay. Well, that's because your camera on your computer, I think, is facing the other way. It's not facing you. Maybe. I don't know. At any rate, it's not necessarily important that we see you, but it would be nice. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, now your video is off. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, if you go to the bottom and click that on, we'll probably just see the red glow again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are you videoing this or am I?
I am.
Okay.
Well,
So I shouldn't.
I'm recording this. Yes.
You're recording.
Yes. Yeah, it does that automatically for the county. You know, because we have.
Why doesn't?
Yeah, we have to upload these for posterity's sake, I guess. Hey, John.
Yeah.
Well, John.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah,
Hello.
John and Rebecca are here. Okay. So Karen, since this is your first time on, can you see other people?
I can see 3 other people.
Okay, good. Okay. So yeah, everything seems to be working on your end, other than the video thing.
Done Zoom meetings before, so I don't know why I'm having a problem here, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like I said, the only it's not a problem. It's just, issue is that we can't really see you, but that's fine.
Okay.
Looks like, is your video on, Karen?
Well, when she had it turned on, we were just seeing kind of this red glow in like the lower part.
Yeah, there now, whoops.
So it's like her camera isn't really pointed toward her, or her. Are you on a laptop or a
laptop? Okay.
And which way is the screen pointed? Is it kind of pointed upward, or is it
like up? Like you would use a computer.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of facing you, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. It seems like. Are you sitting in a room with like a lamp on or something, or?
Well, there's light well behind me. I mean,
okay.
Like Robert has a big light there.
Yeah. But
This is a new computer for me, by the way. So.
Okay.
It looks like, did you take the tag off the camera? When they come new, there's a little tab covering the camera.
I think I see it.
There we go.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Why am I so light? There we
How about
go.
that? Wow.
Hey.
Yeah.
All right, we can see you now.
Kind of the same thing as putting your finger over the lens, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, right.
And sort of. Okay. All right, mystery solved. All right. Thank you for that, John.
Way to go, John.
No problem. Yay.
Yay.
I had the same problem when I bought my computer, so it's not uncommon.
Okay.
Yeah. I like the artwork behind you, John.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Very
All
cool.
right. So it's almost time. In fact, it is time. Okay. According to, the phone here. So happy Monday, everybody.
Hello.
Everybody having a pretty good day so far?
Yeah.
So far, but it's only 10 o'clock.
Mhm.
I see. You're one of these glass half full people.
Actually, no, I'm a Yeah, glass half full.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's like, it's all good now, but yeah, something can always go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. Um, Veronica, I just wanted to say to you, it was nice seeing you at the art show on Saturday.
Likewise, and that picture was magnificent.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot here for a minute.
Okay.
Can you tell everybody what you thought? I mean, was that your first time to the Cobb Marietta Museum, or had you ever been there before?
Yes, it was my first time.
Uh-huh.
And what else would you like to know?
Well, what did you think of it? The whole thing.
Well, I thought the pieces were great. You know, to me, you know, I guess I'm biased when it comes to you because yours was the best. But, you
You
know,
are
they had, they had wonderful pieces, and it gave me inspiration to paint and draw better to submit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Good. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I mean, and then they had an array of artists with different mediums, from watercolor to photography, acrylic and oils. So I thought it was curated wise, it was good. I just like to see maybe a bit more, but I guess they have limited space. I don't know how that goes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think they needed to get their elevators working.
Yes. That would be helpful.
That was a workout.
Where are you talking about?
We're
The,
talking about. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
The Cobb Marietta Museum of Art. I think that's the proper name.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of you who hadn't heard, there's a show that they do every year. And I was always under the impression that it was sort of a regional art show. So there were people from like Louisiana and South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, you know, all over the place down here in the South. And so they held this annual art show. And, you know, it's a good show. You get to see a lot of really, really good work. And the good news is it will be up through like early September. So if you can get by there and actually see the show, I would do that. I will warn all of you, as Veronica mentioned, the elevator right now in that building seems to be out of order for some reason. And the show is on 2 floors. And so there would be steps involved to get up to the upper gallery, which is kind of a pain, but you know, if you can do those things, you know, I would go do it.
Did you have a good turnout?
I think they said that they had nearly 500 people there.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah, it was really packed.
Yes.
It was packed.
How much to get in?
I think it's a $10
Oh, good.
admission thing. But I will be going back here maybe later this week, and I will be photographing the show so that I can actually share it with all of you.
Cool.
There's over 100 pieces in the show itself.
Yeah.
And you know, they had over 600 submissions, and so we're not talking about 600 pieces submitted. We're talking about 600 artists who submitted, and out of that, they culled it down to only 100 pieces. And so if not that everybody submitted 3 pieces, but if every artist submitted 3 paintings, that would be 1,800 paintings that they had to go through. Paintings or sculptures, you know, to kind of cull it down. So, it's become kind of a big deal. It's, I think the show started in like 2000, maybe like 2004, 2005 was the first one that they had. I think this one was their 22nd year, is what they said. But, which would have put it back at about.
That's pretty major event, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's, it started off originally, because I mean, ever since I started it, I've been submitting work to it. And I would say like 1 in every 3 years, I get something in. Okay.
Mm.
But it has started as kind of a small, like, really kind of right around the Marietta and Atlanta metro area show. And it's really grown into, a pretty big deal, to where it really is. It's probably one of the top 20 or 30 shows in the Southeast right now that you can submit to. So, they've put themselves on the map, pretty well. And
They have.
yeah, and they've, I mean, great work. They've done a lot to improve the space. They're actually, I talked to the director of the museum. They're trying to get funding right now because they want to make some modifications to the lighting and, the interior space itself. And they want to try to expand a bit. To
Maybe buy a new elevator.
yeah,
Right?
probably getting a new elevator is part of that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I think that the elevator was, an original part of the building. So,
Yeah, that's what someone else said to me. They said that elevator is old. I said, okay.
yeah.
All right. I took the stairs.
So
Oh,
do
it
we.
It is very old. Yeah.
So do we.
Yeah, I think that building was built probably in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a big public building. It used to be the post office, and I think for a while it became a library, and it's been a lot of different things in its life. But
Is it right downtown Marietta?
Just
yeah,
off the square.
it's right off the square on Atlanta Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like about about 2 blocks off of the
Okay.
so it's real close by. But it's a great, if you've never been there, it's a really good,
What's the name of the museum, please, Charles?
called the Cobb. Or, I'm sorry, I'm putting, it's actually Marietta / Cobb Museum of Art.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and if you get down there, Maddie Beck is the curator who curated the show, and some of you knew her from years ago when you were taking drawing classes because she modeled for us when she was still a college student. Now she's a museum curator. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, she's doing a great job there. So anyway, my thought about the show was that I thought they did a really, really good job at hanging the show and lighting the show this year. I had a piece in, I think it was about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And unfortunately, where they put it, there wasn't really a lot of lighting. And the only light that they could get on it was hitting it at a really odd angle so that when you were standing back, looking at the piece, you really couldn't see the top third of it because it was just all kind of blown out by, too much direct light on it. So they did a much better job this year at really lighting all the pieces and
they did.
and hanging them. And And there was some great work there. So it's well worth going to go see the show. So that's my plug for them. Anyway,
I need to go back. That's number one. And my only other suggestion is to bring it into this century is that if you could prepay and have a QR code on your phone, and that way they just scan it and stop the bottleneck in the front.
yeah, that would be helpful too.
Yeah, that's just my only crazy thing.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what you could do is you could always email or call the museum and
Okay.
just suggest that.
Yeah, I think I will.
Yeah, because I mean, hey, getting feedback, I mean, that's an important thing for them.
And during normal would there be such a backup? That was for the event itself, right?
Yeah.
No, you're right, John. I think that, now it wouldn't be that way, but for the event, the reception and the opening,
Right.
that would be important. I'm going to go back because there's some other things I'd like to look at closely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I couldn't push the people down that were standing in front of me, so that wasn't going to work out.
Well, you could.
Yeah.
But then they'd have to clean the beer up off the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess one thing I would say is that my experience in going to that museum over the years is that unless there's a big show going on, literally you'll be one of 3 people in the whole building.
Oh, okay.
It's very quiet there,
Okay.
I've gone there lots of times and literally been the only person in the building other than the staff who were keeping the place open. And, I spent hours there,
Wow.
and not seeing anybody. So, like I said, I'm probably going to go back. Well, I guess I'm going to have to go back tomorrow because it's the only time, either that or else they're not open on Mondays. I'm going to have to go back tomorrow to photograph the show because it's really going to be the only time that I'd have an opportunity to do that. So that's where I'll be tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow morning.
Can anybody enter the show?
Yeah, it's open. Yeah, any artist can submit work. And you submit it. I think the fee was like $30. You can submit up to 3 pieces.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about the $30 fee is that along with the $30 fee for submitting your pieces, that also counts as your membership for the year.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
So you get, you don't have to pay like a separate membership fee. Entering the show gets you that. So, you're a member for the rest of the year and you can go back as much as you want and it's absolutely free. Yeah. Okay.
From the description, it sounds like they need to update to get more people to come.
Yeah. Foot traffic there, like I said, is not real high, but it's, I think they like weekends and things like that, they get busier. During the week, not so much. So now they do have activities there, like they have classes and they have like artist presentations and talks. In fact, some of the artists that were in the show the weekend before, the weekend before the show, they were actually there doing like demonstrations, kind of showing their techniques, things like that. So, so they do have other things going on there. It's not a total ghost town all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. And for any of you who are interested in figure drawing, they have a live model come in, and it's on a Saturday, and it's usually, I think it's like the 3rd Saturday in the month. and I have a date. It's the 20 something. Anyway, they're going to have a live model there this month, and it's a It's a 3-hour drawing class, or drawing session, and
Mm-hmm.
so you can bring any kind of dry media, and they have chairs and stuff, and just bring dry media, something to draw on, and a drawing board, and you can sit there and draw for 3 hours. So, and again, I think the fee on that is like $10. But it's well worth it. They get good models there, and it's a lot of fun. They usually get about 12 to 15 people show up to draw. So if you're interested in that, let me know, and I'll try to give you more information on it. Okay.
Okay.
So guess what we're going to do today? We're going to try to get inspired. Okay. We're going to look at a few things. I'm going to start off. There's an artist, Calvin Marcus, and he's a young guy. He's an artist. They did an interview. It's called the Louisiana Channel, and they interview a lot of artists, writers, people like that, about their work. And I guess I would imagine he's located somewhere in Louisiana. I want you to watch this, and I want you to listen carefully, okay? Because he says some things in there that I think are, well worth hearing about if you're trying to, live as an artist, and about how you approach creating your work and things like that. So, you may like his work, you may not like it, but, again, I think he's got some interesting things to say. So I'm going to share this with you, and then we'll move on to other things. So, yeah, that's what we want. Share. All right. All right, everybody see the playlist here?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. All right. So we're all on the same page. I like it with that.
My sisters and I too. So
We want to
I
go
think-
back. Back. All right.
Since I moved to Los Angeles, it's been a goal of mine to own a studio. And in looking for one, I tried to find a place where I could live as close to, which is exactly what I found. So I wake up and walk a few steps to my studio. A friend of mine, her essay was an anthropological survey that she cast on the internet to get people's responses to what this was. And some people said, it looks like a cat's asshole with something being pushed through it or something. It looks like a hot dog going through a breast. It looks like a penis going through a breast. It looks like a penis, a breast, and an asshole. So everyone kind of casts these votes as to what it might be or what it is alluding to. And I would almost rather each thing not be described as any one particular thing. I think that the best way to describe it is that it's having some tension with each other. some sort of physical force, whether it's in, out, apart, together, one, none, inflating, exploding. The important part is that it's like a sculptural event. It's just the convergent aspect of it that I'm interested in. I want my own voice in art to be far from polite. I don't think I'm someone that wants to dress something up to make it more digestible for a viewer. I think, like, especially in this case, it's pretty raw. Yeah, I don't know. I would hope that the image feels not of the past and not of the future, but has a kind of forever validity or something. Because I think that this picture is as basic as like human origin or something. Like it has that kind of embryonic aspect to it, or like birth, or it's sort of the beginning and the end. And that feels very universal and not so tethered to a specific moment. I draw a lot of the imagery from my surroundings, my own body, I guess, my own person, my own mind. And there's a lot of things that I'm attracted to in art that are usually these kinds of psychological projects and these spaces that seem tethered to reality, but they take on their own sort of spatial invention. Like I think of Francis Bacon's Rooms or something, where there's, you know, a mound of sand coming through a doorway or something, where two things collide that are existing in the painting but couldn't really be otherwise. And so if I think about something like that and the painting behind me, I think there are two elements, like a landscape and a figuration, that have been sort of repurposed or reconfigured to, you know, they're not so different than something we know, but just enough to make you recognize it, but then also be kind of thrown off by it. I guess as an artist, I feel inundated with content all around me, right? And so sometimes I see things in museums, things in galleries that are literally just things from ordinary places like the hardware store, or you know, found objects that get repurposed or recontextualized as art objects in an art context. Sometimes I think that all of this stuff, all this media is actually like, it's already content, it's already art. And I think that pushes me personally as an artist to actually want to go inside and mine something out that doesn't already exist, that isn't already content. Because to me, that's, whether it's in a gallery or in a store, it's sort of it's actually already has an objecthood in a way. So to put it in a gallery is, it's like an art gesture or something. And as interesting as that is, I think that my own personal relationship is with art is has to be more specific to me and my own experience as a maker. And the only way I know how to do that is to take everything around me and then combine it with myself and make my own version of it. Each time I start a body of work, I feel like I'm starting from the beginning. I try to, at the same time, throw out everything I know about painting or image making in a way, and let the body of work sort of dictate what I need to learn to make it. So, you know, all of these things I did kind of for the first time ever. In some cases, they, you know, there was material limitations that I knew that I hadn't actually known from like a previous body of work. But then to make something like this, I get to some point where I have to employ something I've never done, whether it's like silk screening on a canvas to make a really realistic coin flipping through space, where then the whole rest of the painting is sort of like loosely painted in sloppy watercolor. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's like research involved in the development of each body of work. And then when I don't ever really stop doing something, but when I sort of segue into a new group of paintings, all of that research sort of starts over with the small scale studies and the color tests and sort of material investigation to see kind of what's the best way to pursue making the artwork. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean it's a painting, right? I kind of let the idea dictate the medium. And that's why the bodies of work, I think, formally look so different, because I'm really not segueing from one group of paintings into the next. They kind of abruptly stop and start. And so some things have looked cartoonish and some things have been very minimal monochromes. And right now I've been making these paintings of plants. And the way that I make them is I have this very specific plant that's something that my great-grandfather brought from England. It's a begonia. And I started making these paintings where I stick my phone inside the plant and take a picture from below up through the leaves where the light's peering through them. And then I paint them with this like painstaking detail, every little hair and fiber of the way that the leaf is formed. And then I make these kind of made up backgrounds with tiny blades of grass. And it's just a painting of a plant. But the way that I painted it is so intense and so detailed, and that the hairs of the branches become almost like these almost pubic hairs, and they're almost disgusting paintings of plants. And I don't know why I have this fascination to want to do that, but I think it's about somehow adding an intensity to something. And I think I've realized that the painting doesn't have to be as explicit as this to become intense. It can be something as simple as a plant, just the way that you interpret it or pursue it, that it can actually go into that realm of scary and almost overwhelming, which I like the idea that a painting on a wall could somehow feel like it's reaching around you as you look at it. I started making these small drawings on paper with Crayola crayons, like the ones the kids use, and I wanted to scale them up into large scale paintings. And I think there's always this kind of problem for painters, art makers, that when they want to take something that looks as fresh and as off the cuff as a drawing and translate it into a painting, it often becomes very stiff through the process of enlargement. And so in making those works, I worked with a very crafty paint maker in New York named Robert Doak, who helped me sort of duplicate the feel and the exact color and even the waxiness of Crayola crayons. And we made sort of 2-inch thick versions of crayons, and we even named them the same color. So yellow was actually dandelion from the Crayola box. Only the only difference is that they're made with sort of archival pigments and more traditional binders than what would be like a food safe Crayola crayon for kids. And then I just projected and redrew them as if they were the exact same things. And that was just an effort to not lose any of the freshness of the drawing quality. But to do that, I worked with like a fabricator to create tools just to make the paintings. And then the next series of paintings I made after that looked completely different. Even though all of the series are quite different on a formal level, I think that there is a there's a sense of the way that I make things that is, you know, at least some kind of formal thread through all the work, which could just be by the way I kind of pare a lot of the elements down visually. I think that I was really influenced by a lot of kind of like graphic design techniques. My father and mother were both graphic designers, and so I grew up in this household really looking at the way things function on a visual ergonomic level, right? So when you making a logo or like a corporate identity of some kind, and you're trying to create something that is authentic to the vision of the brand while simultaneously having typography and logo sort of all sync together. And I saw that a lot in just because my father's office was downstairs of our house for a long time. And also because of the things that my parents exposed my sisters and I to. So I think that they probably instilled in us like a certain sense of design, I guess. So I think when I'm working on a body of work, there's parameters, and once I develop them, even if it's in a very painterly, haphazard way, I eventually hone in on key elements to series. And so even with the soldier paintings, there was always a figure laying in the grass with a brown background, and all of the other things that are attached to those works are very matter of fact. Like the dirt is brown and grass is green, and then within those parameters, the figures could be sort of anything, right? And then in another series, I pared them down to just a very creamy background and a black line, because I was looking at newspapers and the way that newspapers are designed, and it's no coincidence that they're this kind of warm, legible gray with a black letter on it, black imagery, and that's all meant for you to be able to look at it for a long time, right? If it was bright white paper and black ink, it's actually just too much contrast for your eye to look at for a long time. And as we all know, newspapers are thick and there's a lot to see, so they're made for you to look at. And so when I made these other paintings, I literally designed them to be looked at for as long as possible in a almost soothing way, because the rest of it's total chaos. There's such thing as, painters, drawers, sure, filmmakers, everyone has these kind of like signature things where you just know it's a Martin Scorsese film or something. Or like when you look at a Laura Owens painting, when you see these kind of squiggles or, marks that are supposed to be waves, you just know it's hers. Or even if it's not her actual gesture, just when you see a few of these blues and purples together, you just know it's a Laura Owens painting. And I don't know, I haven't figured out what that is for me, but I think that I have something that's not, literally a gesture, but it's something I do that links the work. The way that I've sort of set out on my artistic path is, I guess, from the beginning of having opportunities to exhibit my work, I've kind of gone out of my way to be as slippery as I possibly can, so I can maintain my sense of freedom as an artist, because I think that in our current art climate culture, there's a real desire to develop something that really has a iconic, almost like brand-like status as an artist. So that, it's a sort of opposite thing that we were just talking about, but this desire to know exactly who it is from a mile away. And and that the project is just pursuing that one thing forever. And I thought that always seemed like a bit of a trap to me. So from early stage, I made a point to show many things all at once and pursue all the things I was interested at once. So anytime I'm making a show, I'm usually making 2 or 3 others at the same time, and allowing them to cross influence each other, which sometimes will spit out a 4th or a 5th. And I remain very open with the projects. And so, yeah, right now I think that the direction is not a singular one. It's sort of going out in many different directions. And I think as a artist, there's this desire for me to want to like grab on to more rather than less. But for my first exhibition, I did a series of 10 green monochromes that are not green screen, but for all intents and purposes, they are like a singular shade of green. In the center of every painting, at just about my eye height, was a relief that is my face mixed with the carcass of a chicken. And the way that I developed the series was I rotated the chicken's body relative to the face in each painting. So as you walked around the room, there was just these 10 monochromes with 10 faces in the middle of every painting. And as you look at them, there's just this kind of haunting mask-like creature staring back at you. And the reason I continued rotating the chicken's carcass is I really not suggesting that these were of Earth. They're really supposed to be these kind of psychological, perceptual shifts that were happening as you look into this, green void. And as I started to make the series, people that I was showing them to kept asking if it was a green screen green. And they weren't like the literal brand that is used, but I thought a lot about how green screen was meant for digital image replacement, right? So you green things out so that you can replace it with something else, which to me means it's like a projection space. It could be anything, which was exactly the reason I painted them green, just because I wanted them to be these projection-like spaces. So for all intents and purposes, I just kept saying that they were green screen because to me it kind of conceptually meant the exact same thing. And then the sort of reason that they became these chicken faces was they had actually originally started out as just a sort of devil mask, and they had like a goatee and a pointy nose and pointy horns in the very like conventional idea of what like a demonic creature was. That was originally what I had on the green monochromes as I was developing the artworks. And I ended up watching a soap opera in one of the episodes that I don't normally watch one of these shows, but I ended up catching a glimpse of one where a character has an internal thought, and on one shoulder, because it happens in cartoons a lot too, at one shoulder a devil pops up, and on the other shoulder an angel pops up. And what I thought was really interesting was in this particular show, it wasn't a third party devil with pointed horns or anything. It was actually just that person in a costume. So I thought, well, the devil isn't really like or at least the thing I think I'm interested in is not really the devil like in the sort of Catholic sense of like burning in hell. It's actually the devil is really this perceptual thing in your mind. And what I thought was truly demonic and truly scary would be that if you were to look into the mirror and your own vision, the thing that you bear all of your reality on, becomes something that you can't trust, right? Like that's truly scary. That's like your mind is lost, or the thing that you trust is is no longer something that you can trust. So your bearing on everything is kind of up in the air. And so I had a chicken body and realized that it was not so different in scale from a face, and that when you turn it upside down, the drumsticks were pointing up. It actually very much resembled the devil's horns. So I made the first one like that with my face kind of popping through it. And I didn't make a mold or anything, so it's really sculpted by hand. Each one's totally unique. I don't know if I was trying to say something about myself as much as I was trying to say something about what that experience would produce to anyone, right? Like you look in the mirror and you see yourself, or you look down at your food and you see yourself in it, or you look in the mirror and you see someone else. So I think it was more about the experience of seeing something that shouldn't be, rather than like what it means for me to be a chicken.
Weird.
All right. Any thoughts about all of that?
Weird.
Weird. There you go. Okay. Anybody else?
I agree. Weird.
Weird. Yes. Weird.
I think he's still trying to become. He's in this state of becoming.
Do people buy those pictures?
Actually, if you look him up on the internet, yeah, commercially he's fairly successful.
I mean, I can't, I appreciate all kinds of art. This is not my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, it seems to me that the contemporary abstract painters, the thing about them that is the same is that they all paint huge. And if you paint huge, then you can sell your painting for $20,000 or $30,000.
Okay.
You can?
Well,
There are some paintings
yeah.
that I wouldn't even hang in my closet. So
yeah.
Yeah.
doesn't matter whether it's 20 feet or 2 feet or 2 inches.
Well,
Everything is a matter of taste.
you're right.
Yeah.
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 Well, it's more than that, though. Okay, it's more than just a matter of taste. What it all comes down to, I think, is that as an artist, regardless of what type of artist you are, you have, you set yourself out, or in the direction of creating things, right? And that's part of the process. And if you want to make a living as an artist, the other part is you have to find your audience. See? And and that's a big part of it. You see, that's why, you can live as an artist or as a creative and make a lot of stuff. But the other part of it is, if you're going to make a lot of stuff, after a while, you have to find a place to put it. And part of that process is finding an audience who will support you and buy your art.
That was my question. How his first showing in that gallery of the green screen with the chicken,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why would the gallery even accept those without
well, certain
have an audience ahead of time? Or
well, and that's the thing. Yes, he has built an audience for his work, and he attracts a certain type of collector. They're usually younger, a little more creative, a little more hip, and they kind of get the irony and the sort of how he plays with ideas, and that's his audience. And think of it this way. Put yourself in the shoes of a gallery owner. Okay. Who do you want to show? Do you want to show somebody who doesn't have an audience? Or do you want artists coming to you who can bring an audience to your gallery that enhances, you know, the mailing list of the gallery, you know, and actually sells work? So,
You know, I would kill to have a studio like that.
oh yeah,
Wasn't that amazing?
yeah. And so,
But,
okay.
well, it also means that with the huge space that you have,
Mhm.
you have to paint big pictures. You know,
You don't have to, but
but it
you can.
would get lost if they weren't.
Yeah, but did any of you notice his process? And we've talked about process before.
Basically a series of thumbnails that you want to
Mhm.
down it.
Yeah, but yeah, he was very specific when he kind of pointed out, you know, he starts off with these drawings and they're small, right? And then he takes them and he does color studies, right? So he'll do the same composition, but he'll use different colors and maybe, you know, different textures and things. But he'll do it over and over and over again until he comes up with a solution, right? And he works in series, right? So he'll put together, you know, maybe 10, 15, 20 paintings, but they'll all be related to each other in some way, right? So he's talking about a specific thing, you know, rather than just sitting down and, well, today I'm going to paint flowers, okay? And then tomorrow I'm going to go out and paint a landscape. And then the next day I'm going to paint a figure. You know, he works, you know, like the begonia thing. You know, he probably had 15 paintings in that studio that he was working on, and he was working on them all at once, you know, and which is, you know, Karen, you brought up, you know, he's got this big space, right? Well, he has lots of wall space that he can hang those canvases on. And you notice how many work tables he had? He had a work table
Yeah.
in each and every one of those places. And so he could move from painting to painting, you know, and he might work on one a little bit that day and then go over to another one and work on it. But they were always up there and they were always in his view so that, you know, he could see them and they would influence each other. So,
Mhm.
Did you also notice when he talked about when he worked small that the pieces looked freer, and in order to get the movement in them, he enlarged them with I guess a photographic equipment or something,
Mhm.
so to get the looseness in the larger piece that he had in the smaller piece.
well, yeah, that's those pieces that he had done with, you know, like Crayola crayons. He had
Right.
done the original studies and things. And yeah, you know, one of the problems that you have is, let's say that you do your studies in a media like pastel or something like that. And then when you want to enlarge that and make a bigger painting of it, do you still work in pastel? And you may not be able to, because you may not be able to use pastel like on a hard board surface or something.
Yeah.
So you have to adapt the media, and you end up losing something in the translation.
Right.
So rather than doing that, he had, you know, he had to go out and actually go to a paint manufacturer, somebody who made paint, and they ended up making these paint sticks and color matching the pigment so that they would be the same pigment as, or the same colors as those Crayola crayons, and they made them into a 2-inch, you know, basic like paint stick that he could use, so it would end up looking a lot, you know, closer to the same thing.
Still
Right.
lose a lot.
Yeah. So, and this is, again, this is part of the creative process. See that, you know, a lot of creative people have to go through. And it's like, how do they adapt, you know, from what they think is a great idea here on paper, you know, at this small size, and how do they get that same sort of effect, right? And so there's a lot of technical aspects, you know, and, you know, we've talked about sculptors in the past, and it's like, usually as a sculptor, you work out like little, they're called thumbnails, right? And they're just little shapes, things in clay or wax or whatever media. And then you begin to scale that up, see? So, you know, you do something that's maybe, you know, 4 or 5 inches tall at first, just as an idea. And then you go and you make it, you know, maybe, you know, 12 to 14 inches tall in the next piece, again, refining it, making a little more detail before you go to a full size, you know, or full scale sculpture, okay? Where you may make it, instead of, you know, 12 or 14 inches, you'll make it 10 feet or 12 feet tall, right? And so there's a process to all of this stuff, you know, and figuring out for yourself.
Every time you blow it up.
Yeah, but it's like, as an artist or as a creative person, each of you, and this is, you know, and this is why we're talking about this, because it applies to all of you. You kind of have to figure out your own process, you know, the way that you're going to develop your work and how you develop your ideas, okay? And, you know, we keep going back to this conversation of, yes, it's fun to sit down at an easel and just start painting, right? But a lot of times, you know, the outcome of things will be a lot better if, rather than jumping into the painting, you spend a little time with a pencil in your hand and you figure out composition and values. And then you take that and you try a color study, again, at a small scale, and then before you do the final piece. Because by then you've kind of gone through the thinking process behind it, and you have a clearer picture of where you want to end up at. See? And
he said something. He said something at the beginning that he paid attention to people's opinions and what they said, and adapted to what they thought of his work. I didn't quite understand that.
well, no, he had a friend of his who posted one of his pieces of work,
Okay.
and you know, it was that piece of work that was behind him, which, you know, you can imagine all sorts of things about it, you know,
Yeah.
as to what it could have been. And he just, you know, he was interested in people's response to it, see? And it's not that he intended to make it, you know, if you'll excuse the language, you know, a cat's asshole or something like that, but that's the way people saw it, see? And he was kind of interested in the reaction that they had. And, you know, I mean, most artists are, you know, it's like, you, regardless of what your intention is, you know, it's really interesting to get feedback and see how people kind of react to your work, you know, either in a negative way or in a positive way. So
That's what's good about our Tuesday session.
yeah, critique thing. Yeah, that's kind of, you know, that's kind of the whole thing about it is, you know, you get people, you know, now we're in a relatively, I think, safe group of people, you know, who we all kind of know each other, and we're going to be, you know, pretty kind about how we say things to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. You put it out there in the broader range of the world, and you can get all kinds of reactions. So yeah. So sometimes it can get a little rough. And if you're a working artist and art critics begin to review your work, some of them can be, pretty brutal, at times.
So
You
who
know.
do you listen to?
Who do you listen to? Well, I think, you kind of come down to basically what he said, which is, at the end of the day, you got to listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're making your work. You can't control what a art critic or a gallery owner or, the general public, you really can't, control what they think. And at the end of the day, you're trying to find a way to communicate with them, but at the same time, they may like it, they may not, so you might have to get kind of a thick skin, to survive as an artist. If
I
that's,
just cry.
yeah, sometimes you do, yeah. Well,
Charles,
Mhm.
when we were at the exhibit yesterday, I saw the young man who did the red tennis,
yeah,
and he had said that he used pencil,
color.
colored pencil, to
Mhm.
do those.
Mhm.
So this guy Calvin was talking about how he had to go through the process of making his waxiness of his crayon.
Mhm.
I think that there must have been the guy must have had some kind of process with his colored pencils in order to give it that kind of finish that he gave it. And he was saying, like, you would look at the soul of it and it looks like it might be one color, but it really took like 4, 5, 6 different colors to make it that one color. And he said he took 300 hours, but it was the process and the application that he went through.
Mhm.
So that it made it look more like oil paint than it did colored pencils.
Right.
And it looked at depth. And so I was thinking that this young man, Calvin, also did something special with his pencils and stuff, his crayons, to make them waxiness, or as you said, made a paint stick. So these little things that artists do, and they have the freedom to do whatever they want. And I think that's what he was saying. I think he has this freedom because his parents were graphic artists, and so he grew up in this environment of experiment, probably, and he had the freedom to go out and do these kind of things. And I thought it was amazing what he did with the chicken and himself, And I went back when he said it looks kind of scary sometimes. I went back all the way to the song that Michael Jackson sang about the man in the mirror. Look at the man in the mirror. And he actually kind of like did that and turned himself upside down and did it kind of weird. But young people love that kind of stuff. They love weird things, think something different. So they would probably love it,
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, yeah, putting your face on a chicken, on the body of a chicken,
Mhm.
it's kind of a weird, disconnected idea. But hey, it's like, why not?
Freedom to do that.
Yeah. If you can figure out a way to do it, and the fact that, he was using like a flat surface, and then it was what you would call a high relief sculpted piece on top of it. That just figuring that out of how you're going to get that to stick to that surface securely, that's a bit of a technical challenge, because you can't hang it on a canvas, because if you hang it on the canvas, the weight would make the canvas sag, right? So you've got to mount it to a hard surface, something that's not going to move, right? So again, it goes back to this thing of, yeah, you can have all these ideas, but then at the end of the day, you got to figure out how you're going to do it. how are you going to do it, and not just do it once, but be able to repeat it, and go through that process, and do it multiple times so that you can build a body of work around it. So, again, it gets back to that idea of, yeah, it's great fun to sit down and just paint something, but at the end of the day, most professional artists, are the people that we call artists. There's a little more involved, than just their technical skill of how to use a paintbrush and color and things like that. There's the skill of being able to sit down and actually kind of plan and figure out how they're going to do something, and then actually execute it, and then find an audience for it, or develop an audience for it. So there's a much bigger picture out there than most people have of what an artist is. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to. Anyway, anybody got anything else to say about this guy before we move on?
No.
Nope.
I do have a question. You just said something about who we perceive as an artist, or what we think of as an artist. Is that a person who is successful at being an artist, or sells his or her work?
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, anybody, a 3-year-old can be an artist too. But
Mhm.
what you're talking about is what?
Well, what I'm talking about is, and it's going to change for each and every one of us. See, your idea of what an artist is going to be different than mine,
Yeah.
right? And so when, I know a lot of people in the world who get up in the morning and all they do is make art. They make art, they sell art. That's how they make a living, right?
Yeah.
They'll do commission work, they'll take on a lot of different type of work, so that at the end of the day, we all have to eat, we all have to have a place to stay and live, right? Okay, so I know a lot of those people. So you would call them, some people would call them professional artists, right? So, your idea of what an artist is, like you said, might be a 3-year-old child.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. But, and when I look at that, yes, I think the 3-year-old children can be artistic. I think they can make art, but let's see them when they're 25 or 30, and did they make a living as an artist? Did they pursue that? And are they trying to live off of their creative abilities? So,
But if you were to take that 3-year-old 8.5 by 11 little drawing that he does and make it 8 foot by 10 foot
Mhm.
and put it on a wall,
Mhm.
does that make him an artist?
well,
In
we've
a museum, it might.
yeah, well, we've actually, and you weren't here for this, but we've actually looked at several children who are actually creating art and who are showing in galleries and things like that. A lot of that is being pushed by their parents, and there's some questions about that as well. But the fact is, yeah, I don't think that you have, being an artist doesn't have anything to do with your age.
Mhm.
I think at the end of the day, it has to do with, do you have this inward desire to create something, right? And there are just people who are born that they're going to make stuff, whether there's a market for it or not. At that time, they're just going to make it, and the reason they're going to make it is because they have to.
Mhm.
It's like breathing air to them. It's like, they sort of, they see things, and experience things in the world, and to sort of process that, they have to get it down on a canvas or a piece of paper, or, with a lump of clay or something. But some way they have to take it and process it and filter it and come out with something, at the end, to begin.
No,
with.
actually, by your definition, Charles, none of us in this group are artists except you, because we're not making a living off it. We and some of these people in the group produce remarkable pieces,
Mhm.
but they're not making a living off of them.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you have to make a living, to be an artist. I'm saying I know a lot of people who do that. Okay, and some of them do it really well. Other people, not so much. But yeah, I think for me, if I had to define what an artist is, it centers more around that part of making art is a way of you sort of interpreting and experiencing the world, processing that for yourself. And I think, to me, that's what really makes an artist. And it doesn't matter whether you're a 3-year-old or whether you're a 80-year-old.
Getting there.
Yeah. You mean to take the girl part, or you mean to kind of, using art as a way of processing the world around you?
Mhm.
I think there's a difference in semantics there. Professional artist, as I think, would be the one who is making a living of it. A lot of different people can be artists, but not professional artists.
Yeah, and I would kind of go along with that. I think if you're trying to survive, off of your art, yeah, you could be called a quote unquote professional artist. Okay.
Don't leave out Van Gogh now.
Well, we're going to talk about him just in a little bit.
Yeah, good idea.
And remember Elizabeth, I think Elizabeth Brown in the 18th century, one of the first female artists. She was
I
starting
think it all boils down to what
like 7 years old when she started.
Yeah.
Her father was giving her some guidance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I still think it boils down to being your opinion. I could be a gallery owner and I want to project a new artist. In my opinion, you have 10 worthy, or 5 or 3 or however many you got, new artists, and which one do you want to promote?
Mhm.
And if you keep the promotion going, you can build up a good, to become a good professional artist selling in a museum or in a gallery, but it's whoever happens to adopt the way you paint, they like what you like and they promote it, then you're more capable or more able to produce more professional artwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was saying about finding an audience. See?
Yeah.
And there's lots of different ways of finding an audience. You can find a gallery and have them promote you. That's kind of the traditional way of doing it. And now you have other alternatives. You can promote your own work through digital, like on these different platforms, like, art.net or Etsy or, any number of other gallery sites, things like that. As an individual, you can open up your own online gallery. If you put together a website and post it and then promote it, you're just like a gallery owner, only you're promoting your own work. and not a group of people.
Well, some people are more able to project and work on, let's say, a website.
Mm-hmm.
And some people don't know how to do it. They're not capable of it.
Right.
So there's all kinds of reverberations going on.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. But at the end of the day, Gene, everybody has to find their own way of doing it. If you're not savvy with digital and you
Right.
don't work on a computer, then maybe you need to find a gallery owner who will promote your work, right?
That's true.
Right.
But
Or you can find somebody
you have to
that's
find the gallery that's interested in most. If you go around to most of the galleries, or are able to go around even to any of the galleries,
Mhm.
it's very hard to get someone to look at your portfolios.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of barbs in the wire, so to speak.
Well, okay. Let's talk about
You
that
got to
for a
be
second.
able to promote. You got to have the money to promote. You have to be able to get your a person selected that doesn't require an arm and a leg to help you promote.
Mhm.
I mean, there's all kinds of things. It's the difficulty of doing it puts a lot of the artists that are good in a background that they're still not able or able to get their work seen and sported around and stuff like that.
Right. Yes. Yeah, it's a challenge.
It's a very big challenge, and people get discouraged, and like some of these kids, you say, well, they get discouraged. They say, parents and everybody else will tell you, well, you can't make a living at art. There are very few people who can make a living at doing art. That's the difficulty of the whole situation. You could be the best artist in the world, another Michelangelo, and not be seen.
Right.
But there are, with the digital and the web and everything else, there's so many opportunities. There are websites out there that you can post your artwork and
But what I'm saying is, John, you got to be able to post it. You don't. People are not knowledgeable. Some people are not knowledgeable enough to do that.
Right.
That's easy. You got to find a 3-year-old that can do that for
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
That's
Yeah,
even
maybe
bigger
a 10-year-old. Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be amazed at what 10-year-old kids know these days.
Yeah.
All you have to do is hand them your cell phone.
Yes.
If they get a hold of your cell phone for less than 5 minutes, they'll find everything you have on that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know.
Including going back and looking at, every website that you ever went to on that phone or computer.
Yeah.
And order for you at the same time. Order
Yeah.
all your supplies for you. Order you some art supplies.
Yep. So yeah, that's,
Very true.
again, it's a generational thing, and it's all of what you're comfortable with. But at the end of the day, okay, I guess what I would say is that any of this stuff is accessible to any of us. It's whether or not we're willing to take the time, to learn about it. That's really it. And, as Gene was saying, if you take the traditional route, it's very, very difficult. As an artist or just as a person, you walk into a gallery, remember how they're going to see you. First of all, when you walk through their door, what they're hoping is that you want to buy art and that they want to sell you something. Okay.
Yeah.
And just imagine, how crestfallen they're going to feel at the words coming out of your mouth. Well, I'm an artist, I paint and stuff like that. That automatically tells them, oh God, I can't sell. I can't.
Making money today.
Yeah, I can't sell this guy, any art here because, he sees something, he's going to go home and paint it, himself. So he doesn't need me. right? But you know, the process for submitting things to a gallery, and you know, it varies a little bit, but pretty much so universally. You know, the way this it works these days, and has been for quite a while, is you don't go into the gallery. You know, you send them an email, and in that email, you kind of tell them a little bit about yourself as an introduction, and you give them a link to a website where your work is at. If you don't have a website, then you attach a couple of images, a couple, you know, maybe 3, maybe 4 at the most. You know, you don't send them 100 images. They're not going to take time to do that. But, you know, send them 1 or 2, maybe 3 images to kind of give them an idea of what your work is like, you know, and then, you know, just say, you know, I'm interested in your gallery, and this is why I'm interested in your gallery, yada, 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 you know, and then hopefully they'll respond to you, right? And if they do respond, generally the response that they'll give you is that, well, on certain days of the month, maybe like once or twice a month, will take 2 or 3 days, and I and my curator and staff will sit down and we'll review portfolios. And if you can send us a portfolio either physically and or digitally, their preference is digital these days, we will take the time to look at your work and we will respond. And
That's where the system actually hampers emerging artists, because somebody has to look at it first. You couldn't get into the Cobb Marietta exhibit until somebody approved what you wanted or what you submitted. You
Right.
You can't get into these art shows at parks and festivals because you have to submit and somebody decides if they're going to show.
Right.
So you can't just say, I got art I want to display and can set up a booth.
Well, no, you can't, you know, but that's where doing it digitally, you get more.
Correct, right. That's
because
we're forced into that.
Well, you're not forced into doing anything, but you know, I mean,
Not a bad thing.
it's just a function of how the market works, right? You know, if you're going to have somebody take the time to promote your work, then you're going to have to go through that process of submitting the work and, you know, getting to know them and them getting to know you so that you can form a business relationship. Because
it's even if you wanted to, like I said, get a little tent at an art fair, you can't do that unless somebody looks at your work first and accepts your application.
Right, unless you want to put on your own art fair.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can gather all the artists up and we can all go to your place for the art fair.
There we go.
There we go.
Maybe at Lost Quarters.
Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, we'll do it in John's front yard. There we go.
There you go. Come on down.
Yeah.
Well, that's where even the senior centers and the art program, when they have their showing and that, I mean, that's one way to get your art exposed without having it approved by somebody else, really.
When does that happen?
Yeah, but think about that, John, because the fact is, it gets approved by somebody, doesn't it?
I guess it does, yeah. Still,
Also, you got to remember you have to have the money for the entries too. There are some of these art shows cost you $200-300 just to
yeah,
get
but yeah.
approved.
Oh, true. That's true. But like the Benson Center, then a couple of things they've had. I think maybe some of the other senior centers.
Big business.
Right, they don't have any charges attached to them.
Yeah. No.
Well, they're not selling anything either. They're
That's
just,
right.
just showing, just exposing
Let's go
you.
on to the
Come on now, Claudia. Give us a break.
Yeah. Well, you know, though, okay, we don't discourage anybody from buying the art. we can't be directly involved in that. But,
Right.
you know, if somebody comes up to me and says, and I've done this several times, where somebody's interested in a piece of art at one of the openings, and I put them in touch with the artist, and they can work it out directly.
Yeah.
Because us, you know, the Benson Center and the other multi-purpose facilities, you know, the fact that we're a government entity, you know, we
Correct.
can't really,
Correct.
yeah, we can't really be a middleman, you know, between any kind of financial transaction. Okay.
That's correct.
But, you know, I don't have a problem with going, oh, John, you really like Veronica's painting and you want to buy it? Okay. Yeah, let me get in touch with Veronica. I'll give her your information. The two of you can get together and talk. If you want to buy her painting, that'd be great. So that's the way that works. All right. Anyway, let's
go on for some more inspiration.
Yeah, you know, but notice, see, we had a nice, healthy conversation here about, you know, all kinds of things. See where this stuff takes you? It's wild where you can go with this stuff. All right, so let's go to this one right here. It's called Understanding Surrealism. I'm sure you guys are gonna love this. Yeah, we can skip the ad. I don't think we need a mixer, do we?
Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about a style of art and an art movement called Surrealism. So let's start. What is Surrealism? First, let's think about maybe the word parts. What is surreal? When you say, oh, that's so surreal, what does that mean? Well, surreal means it's dreamlike, bizarre, unreal, things that don't seem like they're tethered to reality. Surrealism as an art movement developed in Europe in the aftermath of World War I. So art changed very dramatically after the First World War. People were so traumatized by the events that happened. Many of the artists themselves fought in the war or were directly affected by it, whether through fighting in their home country or deaths of people that they loved. It was an extremely difficult time for millions of people. And artists especially were trying to find ways to deal with that extreme feeling of just depression and trying to kind of figure out how they can translate that into an artwork. And a lot of the movements that developed around then were very much kind of the opposite of all of those feelings. They decided, you know, everything's so heavy right now, so let's make art about nothing. Let's make art completely meaningless. And so they really started to focus on a lot of like goofy, kind of crazy reactions to things. So in Surrealism especially, the subject matter focused on dreams and the subconscious mind. So they wanted to get away from reality as much as they could. And around the same time, this dude named Sigmund Freud started to become a big deal. I don't know if you're familiar with Freud, but he really developed a lot of modern psychology. So his investigation into the subconscious and how the subconscious affects everything in our waking life was really, really important at the time, and actually still continues to be. So he wrote this book called The Interpretation of Dreams. So he would, you know, ascribe certain metaphors to common feelings or subjects in dreams. And the surrealists were super interested in that. The surrealists thought, you know, yeah, we should explore our subconscious mind. We should explore dreams because it helps us escape from the crushing weight of reality. They also did a lot of different exercises to help them kind of break through to the subconscious. And one of those things was automatism. So automatism is kind of like improvisation, like jazz. You know, we're coming in without a plan. We're just doing, you know, mark making without thinking. So we're trying so hard to push back our conscious mind to get rid of our want for order and meaning and rational thought to really focus on instinct and just instantaneous happenings. So a lot of surrealist artists try to create artwork based off of that. So creating stream of consciousness writing or automatic drawing, where you just kind of like close your eyes and draw and then are able to turn things into an image. So those are some of the big things that kind of go with surrealism. Another big part of surrealism is my favorite word, the most Scrabble points you can get, juxtaposition. So juxtaposition would be combining unlike or unexpected objects to create visual contrast. So really different things. And the use of juxtaposition in art can create a sense of humor, but it can also make you deeply uneasy when you're looking at the images. So many surrealist artists, especially in the 30s, began arranging objects in combinations that didn't make sense and really challenged our rational thought. You know, putting a lobster on a telephone. Why? You know, what reasoning is there? So a lot of the time their objects were really cheap, super mass-produced, or objects that everyone has. They're really common things that everyone sees, but then they would make slight intentional changes to it to make you feel a little weird or give you a little bit of a laugh. We would call this type of sculpture, where we're putting together found objects and things, assemblage. It was really a new thing at the time. So I have a few images here that we're looking at that include some juxtaposition in a variety of ways. So clearly the lobster telephone is a great example of juxtaposition. Also, one of my absolute favorite things from Salvador Dali. I'm not sure why, but the lobster just really stuck with me. Next, we have Max Ernst, The Triumph of Surrealism. So here we can see these almost random sections creating colors and images. It's almost like folded fabric or almost meat-like textures creating this little monster as it comes together. And then Rene Magritte, he was so dry with his humor. I don't know if you speak French, pardon my pronunciation, because I also do not speak French. Ceci n'est pas une pipe. So what does that mean? This is not a pipe. Well, if that's not a pipe, what is it? It's a painting of a pipe. Ha, oh, it's a joke. You get it. It's so funny. So Magritte thought that anything created, any artwork, that image is not real. So we're not trying to recreate reality. We're making a fake reality in our artwork. And so all of his art kind of dealt with those things, that treachery of images. I love that title. Very fancy. So let's talk about some surrealist artists. The first, this is probably our most recognizable piece of surrealist artwork. Almost everyone knows this image, or at least has seen it, may not know the title of it. It's The Persistence of Memory. So, the Melty Clocks, most people know it for that, the Melty Clocks. Salvador Dali is probably one of the most notable figures in surrealism, mostly for his very large ego. He had quite an exuberant personality. So when we look at this image, you know, what things do we notice? We notice a sort of sandy beach, obviously melting clocks. They're drooping over a tree branch, drooping over some kind of wooden structure. And then there's this weird blobby figure down at the bottom. What is it? I notice it's got some very, very long eyelashes, almost like a camel, and wavy blonde, who knows, maybe eyebrows, kind of a nose. What is it? Some people say that's a self-portrait of Dali. We also notice the little pocket watch in the corner on the left is covered in ants. So what is that? Ants were a very common theme in Dali's work, and he thought it represented decay and sort of the inevitability of death. So he talked about that pretty frequently. One thing that's really interesting about Dali is many of his artworks were very much focused on dreams and dream-related imagery. And he had this thing that he called the paranoid critical method. So basically, to make that into layman's terms, is he would induce hallucinations upon himself. Like he would just kind of meditate to reach hallucinations, and that would help him create his artwork. You know, he's got so many quotes that are like super fun. One of them, for example, is the difference between a madman and me is that I am not mad. Or along the similar lines of creating all these hallucinations. I like it better in Spanish. So it's no toco las drogas, soy las drogas, which is I don't do drugs, I am drugs. You get that ego in there, right? In addition to his artwork, Dali was very well known for his fabulous mustache. As he got older, it would get bigger and bigger and bigger. So he died in the 80s. And just a few years ago, someone came forward and said that he was Salvador Dali's illegitimate child. And everyone's like, nah. But he was like, do a paternity test. So they exhumed Dali's body, you know, a good 30 years later, mind you. And get this. His mustache was still intact.
Wow.
Can you imagine this? It's a magic mustache. Just crazy. This is one of my favorite paintings by Dali. I always thought, you know, it was the Drawer Ladies. For some reason, when I first saw this, I never actually noticed the title of the painting is The Burning Giraffe. As we see in the lower left-hand corner, there's just this giraffe in the background chilling on fire, you know, like normal. So really fun, interesting little Easter eggs in this image. So something about Dali's work around this time was the Spanish Civil War. So there were two different factions fighting in Spain. It was brutal. It was really terrible for the country, and many people fled the country to seek safer places. So Dali came to America during that time, and he created a lot of art, including this piece. He described this giraffe in the background as, quote, the masculine cosmic apocalyptic monster, which he later believed to be a premonition of World War II. But he really thought that the burning giraffe was like a warning to the world about the possibilities of war. And he thought, you know, how can we save humanity? And that's where these ladies come in, these drawers. So psychologist Sigmund Freud, like we mentioned at the beginning, he compared the mind to a chest of drawers, something to be opened, sifted through, examined, you know, kind of like your junk drawer at home when you're looking for some batteries. But Dali also thought that opening that chest of drawers in your mind could help us understand the secrets of the human condition very deep. So we're going to stick in the Spanish-speaking realm, but we're going to head over to Mexico and talk about Frida Kahlo. So Frida Kahlo was a surrealist as well, pretty prominent artist at the time, and a very interesting story. This image that we're looking at was painted shortly after her divorce from artist Diego Rivera. They had a pretty messy relationship. He was not a very nice guy, kind of a cheater. So whatever, we could talk about that in another story. But what do we notice when we look at this image called The Two Fridas? We can see Frida represented in two different fashions. On the left is the more contemporary dress of sort of the upper class of Mexico, whereas the right side is more of the traditional garments. So she might be warring between two sides of herself. You know, who should she focus on, being like a modern woman or focusing on her culture? We also noticed that the hearts are exposed and connected together, yet one of them seems a little more damaged than the other, perhaps describing her feelings after her divorce. We notice she's holding scissors that are snipping a vein as they kind of drip blood across her dress. So pretty angsty, you know, a lot of art can be angsty. We have this image also by Frida Kahlo called The Wounded Deer. What do we notice about the space? Where is she in this space? It's very tight and confined. It's kind of claustrophobic almost, but yet dead and empty at the same time. So it's not a very good feeling of the place. We notice in the background there's kind of water, but there's lightning coming down from the sky at that time. So it doesn't seem like a very safe escape either. And when we look at her, obviously with the body of the deer, we might see something agile and nimble as it's jumping. However, it's covered in arrows. And if we note the placement of the arrows, they're primarily across her back. And this is really quite reminiscent of her life story. When Kahlo was 18, she was in a horrible bus accident. A handrail from the bus actually impaled her through her back and out her pelvis. Her spine was fractured, her hips were crushed, her foot was crushed. She was in some pretty bad shape from this accident. So basically she was in like a full body cast for an extremely long time and underwent a number of really intensive surgeries. Many of those surgeries didn't really result in any gains. So she ended up living in pain for most of her life, which is pretty tragic. So actually a lot of her paintings she painted from her bed. So they rigged up like a little easel that would like hold the canvas above her so she could paint while laying down in bed when she was in her full body cast. So a lot of resiliency, but also a lot of struggle in her work. Let's move to another female artist, Merritt Oppenheim. She created probably one of the most arguably famous works in the Surrealist movement, Object. And what's great about this is it was just created as a joke. It was just a little fluff. So Oppenheim is having lunch with Pablo Picasso, and he noticed she had this sort of fur-lined bracelet on, and he joked to her that anything could be covered with fur. And she replied, yes, even this cup and saucer. And while she thought that was very funny, she actually just went out and bought a cup and saucer and a spoon and then wrapped them in this fur. This object itself really redefined Surrealist sculpture and got a lot of attention, which she was really surprised about. Let's look at some other objects. So Man Ray was an American Surrealist, and he is really well known for his photography, but also his assembled sculptures. Man Ray created Indestructible Object in 1923, but then later, after he broke up with his girlfriend, he was very amiss, if you will, and he remade it and called it An Object to be Destroyed. So he changed the original eye to a cutout of his girlfriend's eye, so he's feeling very angsty. My favorite thing about this is that when he started displaying these, he gave some instructions to go with it. So the instructions say, cut out the eye from the photograph of one who has been loved but is seen no more. Attach the eye to a pendulum of a metronome and regulate the weight to suit the tempo desired. Keep going to the limit of endurance. With a hammer well aimed, try to destroy the whole at a single blow. So basically he's telling the viewer, make your own object of someone that you're feeling jilted by and then destroy it with a hammer. So yeah, very angsty. How about we look at The Gift? What do we notice here? An iron with nails glued to it. So a lot of Surrealist artwork, especially sculpture, involves taking an object that has a specific purpose and then rendering it completely useless by adding something else to it. So it adds kind of a sense of humor, a sense of just irony. Get it? Iron. Ah! Oh, that's so funny. All right, objects, they're great. Let's go back to Mexico, to Remedios Varo. So Varo was also from Spain, who moved to Mexico, but this time was at the outset of World War II, so there's a lot of wars going on. just a lot of violence that people were trying to get away from. So Varro's work is really, really fascinating. She was very inspired by the work of Hieronymus Bosch from the Renaissance. So Bosch's work is just crazily detailed and uses a lot of sort of alchemical imagery. So if you're not familiar with alchemy, the science, I'm putting that in quotes, the science of trying to turn lead into gold and to create the elixir of life. A lot of that was somewhere between science and magic. It was kind of in the middle, but it did kind of found modern chemistry. So we did get something out of it. We may not be able to turn things from lead to gold, but you know, they made these weird little machines and stuff. So we look at this, what do we have here? Little grape-like leggy object. And if we look closely, it's squirting out the primary colors onto a palette. And if we look even more closely, we see this owl-like figure with a string of some kind of lute or guitar or something coming down that's attached to a paintbrush. And as they are painting this bird, they're shining some kind of magnifying lens or prism with moonlight shining through it and refracting. And that is causing the painting to come to life. Whoa, there's a lot going on there. Very dreamlike. And we can see by the title La Creación de las Aves, which is the creation of the birds. It all makes sense. All right, we're gonna move to Belgium, back to René Magritte, the This Is Not a Pipe guy. This is a great image of his, probably his most famous, called Golconda, also known as It's Raining Man. It's my jam. So basically, you know how we were talking about the treachery of images with that pipe earlier. So these images of men aren't men, they're just pictures of them. So that means they don't have to follow any rules. They can do whatever they want. So he's really just telling us, you know, representation is false. Everything is fake when we represent it in art. I also think it's fun because a lot of Magritte's images show just this generic man in a trench coat and bowler hat. Like he was just every working class man of a certain station, you know, that's what everyone looked like at the time. So he was kind of trying to think about, you know, the line between individuality and group association, you know, like trying to fit in, but also being yourself, you know, those things that we all deal with. And I chose this image because I feel like it's really a great image for our current situation. You know, our masks and our quarantines and everything really give us a sense of isolation and separation from people. You know, we see the same thing as we look at Magritte's image of the lovers. So they're close, but they're still very isolated and separated by these shrouds over their faces. Covered faces were a really common motif in Magritte's art, and there's some speculation that much of it may have had to do with past trauma. So when Magritte was 14, his mother committed suicide by drowning, and he witnessed her body being brought up out of the water and her wet clothing was wrapped around her face. So we can all imagine how traumatic and horrible that would be to experience that as a kid. Some people think that that might be why he obscures people's faces in his artwork. However, Magritte was like, nah, that's not what it is. He says, my painting is visible images which conceal nothing. They evoke mystery, and indeed, when one sees one of my pictures, one asks oneself this simple question: what does it mean? It does not mean anything, because mystery means nothing either. It is unknowable. So it's pretty snarky review for that. And our last artist that we're gonna look at today is Max Ernst. And Ernst is probably very well known for his collage novel, again, pardon my French, Une semaine de bonté, which is a week of kindness. There's really no interpretation of this book. However, we can talk a little bit about it. So he created almost 200 collaged images, collaging things from Victorian novels and encyclopedias and other books. And then he arranged them together almost seamlessly to create this weird, dark surreal Victorian world. Some of the books have all bird heads, and some of them have bat wings. And as we see in the image here, we have spider faces and rats climbing up the Sphinx, and this weird kind of turkey head on this man that's just tilted slightly too far, and it makes you feel just a little unsettled. So I'm going to leave you with that. I hope you learned a lot about surrealism, and I encourage you to look up more because they are so bizarre and so memorable. Thanks for watching, and keep creating.
All right.
Nice presentation.
Yeah. Any thought about any of that?
Called being bizarre.
Well, okay. Here, hang on. There we go. Okay. We're not ready for you yet, Pete. Okay. Yes.
That's enough to scare you to death with all those bugs. Insects.
Okay.
Rebecca, she's talking.
Rebecca? Rebecca, you got something to say? Where are you, dear? Huh. I don't know.
She's muted.
No audio.
Yeah, she's not muted. Oh, well, according to this.
Right, no.
I can't hear you, Rebecca.
Fixing herself a sandwich.
No, she's there. Rebecca, yeah, something's not working on your end. We see you, but we don't hear you. Okay, now you're muted.
Can't hear you.
Yeah. All right, Rebecca, put it in the chat. I'll look for, well, what, okay, here. She did. Okay, now. So, would the artists we saw at the beginning fall into the category of surrealist? That's a good question, Rebecca. The answer to that would be certainly, I think some of his work borderlines on being surrealist.
Yeah, the chicken, sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
about the very first video.
Chicken, yes.
So yeah, I think I don't know that he's intentionally trying to work within that genre of work, but some of his work certainly kind of borderlines on it. The thing that sort of defines the surrealist, as the presenter pointed out, is that they were really dealing with sort of the subconscious and dreams and trying to more or less interpret, the meaning of their dreams, into visual artwork. So by that definition, there's a lot of people who still use that juxtaposition of, putting things that are kind of, not within the same context, together to kind of create another meaning. Whether that really kind of falls into surrealism or not, I'm not so sure. Okay.
I kind of like that piece that the person looked like an owl,
Mm-hmm.
and they had the magnifying glass coming from the nighttime and made the birds on the painting come to life. I thought that was really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Rather
Great,
than
great for the birds.
some of the scary tactics that they had.
Yeah. Remember too, though, and we talk about this a lot. It's like the art that gets made during certain periods of time are a bigger sort of reaction to what's going on in society, right?
Right.
And, you were right there, just after World War I, and coming up to World War II, you know, you only had about a 20-year, 25-year gap between the two world wars. So even after the First World War, there was still a lot of tension out there in the world, particularly within Europe. A lot of people were being displaced and migrating. They were dealing with the aftermath, you know, both economically and socially from the First World War. So, you know, that was one of those periods of time when you had a lot of creative people, writers, musicians, visual artists, leave Europe to go to South America, you know, North America, you know, Canada, the United States, places like that, and resettle because things economically and socially, you know, were so unstable in Europe. You know, oddly enough, you had a massive exodus of people move from Europe also and go to places like China. And, you know, remember at the time, you know, China was a colony of, I want to say England, you know, Hong Kong, places like that. And so you had a lot of Europeans migrate there as well, you know, and they profoundly influenced the culture and the history in those areas. So same thing with Vietnam and all of Southeast Asia. So people literally scattered and went everywhere. They went anywhere that didn't seem like they were getting ready to have another war, you know, just to get away from it. And you can't blame them, you know. I mean,
No.
Yeah.
You know, I never thought of Frida as a surrealist. Her interpretations seem almost, I don't know, more toward the realism than the surrealism. So to me, her pictures are so different than like Dali and some of the others we've seen.
Well, in looking at a lot of her paintings, yeah, there's always that element of things that sort of don't really belong there, you know, being put together. Like the two Fridas, for example, you know,
Yes.
they're sort of the ideal, you know, Frida where she's like whole and intact, and then there's the broken Frida next to her. You know, so they're kind of mirroring each other.
Yeah, and the deer too, the forest. That's probably the most surrealistic to me of what I've seen of her work.
Okay, yeah.
John, I agree with you. I never thought of Frida Kahlo as being a surrealist, but it was very obvious in this presentation that
right.
it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looked like she wanted to send a message out to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, every painting she did had a message. Yeah. Yeah, that you know, she was all about, you know, saying things about herself, society, her place in society, both as a woman and as an artist, and just pretty much everything she did. But I would encourage any of you, if you have a question about whether she's a surrealist or not, go back and look at her work, and you know, give it a careful look, because in a lot of cases, you know, like particularly in her portraits of herself, and she did many of them.
Yes.
Usually you can find some really unusual things in there that, you know, you wouldn't really expect. So, you know, but that's one of the things about surrealism as an art form and a movement. You know, some people are very, very blatant about it, you know, such as Dali. And then you have other artists who, like Magritte, it's really subtle, you know, it's really, really subtle, you know, but it all kind of falls into that category. So, anybody else got anything to say before we go on? Nope. All right. Let's see, how are we doing time-wise? Well,
Right about there.
yeah, we're kind of there. Yeah, it's 11:56. All right. We'll have to save Pete Mondrian for another day. So,
Oh.
yeah, we didn't get as far as I had hoped we would. But again, and we'll talk about him. Maybe we'll talk about it Wednesday.
What's he classified as? He's not surrealism.
Well, he
It's
went.
a distortion of figures and
Well, okay, but you have to go way back and see. That's why I wanted to play this video, because
Okay.
Mondrian went from literally a representational artist into he went through several different art movements before he got to, total abstraction. And see, everybody thinks of him as, as the artist who painted all of those, rectangular square blocks in either black, white, or one of the three primary colors, right? Red, yellow, or blue.
Right. Yeah.
But he did a lot of paintings before that you would be amazed. I mean, the guy could actually do very nice figurative art.
Yes, I guess we have to wait for Wednesday then.
Yeah, you'll have to wait for Wednesday for that. But yeah, yeah. All right, Rebecca's got going back to artist Calvin Marcus. How did he keep the chicken that he used in his paintings from? Well, okay, they were not actually chickens. Okay, he made chickens out of Sculpey. All right, but he took a real chicken and modeled a Sculpey chicken after, looking at an actual chicken. Okay. So, yeah, they weren't like real pieces of meat hung up there. That wouldn't work for very long. Though they're not, I guess it was about 20 years ago, maybe 30 at this point, where there was an artist who did a series of sculptures made out of chocolate. Okay, literally chocolate. And his idea, because it's not an archival material, and when they put it in museums and things like that, they noticed that bugs started eating it. And his answer to that was the fact that, yeah, that's part of the process. Art isn't permanent. It decays and it deteriorates just like everything else. And so the museum left it on display and just let the bugs eat it. Till there was no more sculpture there. So.
Well. They didn't put it in a glass cage.
No, they did not, actually.
No.
Yeah. So, yeah. There's, again, a lot of different ideas out there about art and whether it should be permanent, whether it's just a passing thing. It's
Maybe you should have put plaster of Paris on top of it to preserve it.
Well, yeah, you could. You could,
But maybe that's like an ice sculpture too. Maybe it's momentary.
Right. Yeah, it's ephemeral. It's there for a moment and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like us. We're here for a certain time and we're gone.
Oh yeah. Now, Charles,
Your papers are still
I have been following you on Facebook. You have a lot of good work there. I think you should make a presentation for us about all of that. It's a lot of work there.
About what?
About your paintings. So you have been putting on Facebook. That's a lot of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a better suggestion. If people are curious about my work, all they have to do is go to Facebook and look at it. That's why it's all
Have to about that, the naked man or the naked woman. Has to.
yes. I think everybody knows that at least once a week, you know, I paint some naked person somewhere. Right? That's just a part of my routine. I do that every week somewhere.
Staying dedicated to the human form.
Yes.
You know, it's for me, you know, it's an enjoyable, you know, thing to do because I get to be around other artists and around this group of friends that I've known for almost 30 years now, and we've been painting together. But also just the challenge, you know, within a very short time of trying to capture, you know, the figure, the gesture, the movement, something maybe about the personality of the person. And it keeps your skills sharp, you know, it's good practice. I don't look at any of them necessarily as final paintings, and it's not something that I'm necessarily going to hang in a gallery. But just as, you know, a way of, it's a social thing, but it's also challenges you, you know, to concentrate and work on your skills. So.
And the body is a beautiful thing. It's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, you know, I've painted all kinds of people, you know, in all shapes,
absolutely.
forms, colors, you know, and the thing is, the human body at any stage is nothing short of absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When you really start looking at it and understanding what you're painting there, yeah, it's pretty awe-inspiring. So, you know, and you know, for me, it's like painting people. You know, there's really nothing more interesting, you know, that you can do, you know, other than painting people, you know, because it's like each of us as an individual, you know, if you can capture a little bit of the essence of who that person is, you know, at that time and place, you know, it's a very difficult thing to do, but B, it's, if you achieve that, you know, it makes you feel pretty good. You know, it really does. So, you know, it gives you a lot of confidence as, you know, as an artist about your skills and your abilities. Because it's probably one of the more difficult things that you can take on as an artist. So, again, it's probably just my opinion, but you know, for whatever it's worth. All right. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for coming. Happy Monday. I hope the rest of your day goes well. If I don't see you in the next couple of days, hopefully your week will go well, you know.
But we have class tomorrow, huh?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
2:00.
Charles, I wanted to ask you about that,
Yeah.
tomorrow, what you do.
What do we do? People submit work, you know, I mean, you just email me the work, you know, and it's really not just me. It's kind of open to the class to look at it. If you have questions about it or if you want comments on it, you know, we'll take a look at it and go, okay, you know, this is working, you know, maybe you're gonna need to think about this a little bit or work on this particular aspect of it. You know, it's just a kind of it's an opportunity for you to share your work and kind of talk about it, but it's also an opportunity, if you want, and you don't have to, okay, you don't have to get a critique on it. You know, it could just be, hey, I just want to put this out there. I want everybody to see it. Thanks, you know,
Okay.
and leave it at that. Okay.
And how do we send it to you?
You just send me an email. Well, you have my email address, don't you?
Yeah, I guess I must.
Yeah, you must, because you're here on the list, and yeah, I've got it. So yeah, just send it to that charles.scoggins@fultoncountyga.gov. email address. And,
Could
and
you throw some more letters in there?
that really was not my choice. That's a typical county email address.
Fulton, is it Fulton CO?
No, county.
It's county.
COUNTY. It's all lowercase. Okay.
Okay.
Fulton County GA.gov.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
I sent you three different emails. Have you gotten them?
Yes. I know I got one of them. You know, because I looked right before we started class, and I got your flower and the reference photo.
Right.
Yeah.
There were two more before that, landscape and then the boxes from class.
Did you send that on Friday?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't gone back that far yet.
Yeah, I'll just resend them all.
No. I can go back and get them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have them. Yeah, I just haven't started collecting everything yet. You know, that's supposedly what I'm doing this afternoon. You know, we'll see how that goes. Okay. Anybody got anything else?
No.
No.
No?
Oh.
No. All right.
Bye-bye, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
That's right.
Okay, bye.
Thank you all.
Okay, bye, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.